How did Argentina go from being one of the wealthiest nations in the world to a middle-range economy? This question takes us back to the early 20th century, when Argentina was in its economic golden age. The country's prosperity was unmistakable, and its economy was a titan among the world's top 10. A wealth of resources, fertile lands, and a favorable geographical location were the building blocks of Argentina's success. Argentina's economy was not just thriving, it was soaring. The South American nation was a paragon of economic prosperity, ranking among the world's largest economies. It stood shoulder to shoulder with the economic powerhouses of the time, sharing the stage with countries like the United States and the United Kingdom. Argentina was not just a participant in the global economic arena, it was a leading player. The country's resources played a crucial role in its economic ascent. Argentina was, and still is, a land of abundance. From its mineral-rich soil to its vast agricultural lands, the nation was endowed with a wealth of natural resources. The fertile Pampas, the heartland of Argentina's agriculture, was a breadbasket feeding not just Argentina, but the world. Geography, too, played a part in Argentina's economic success story. Nestled between the Andes and the Atlantic, Argentina enjoyed a strategic location that facilitated trade. Its ports were bustling, acting as a gateway for goods from the interior to reach markets across the Atlantic. But it wasn't just about resources and location. Argentina's prosperity was also a testament to its people's industriousness and ingenuity. The Argentinians transformed their country's potential into tangible economic success, turning resources into wealth. By the time the echoes of the First World War were fading, Argentina was a force to be reckoned with. It was a wealthy nation, its economy on par with those of France and Germany. The country's prosperity was a beacon, a shining example of economic success. But as we'll see, this golden age would not last forever. So, how did Argentina go from being one of the wealthiest nations in the world to a middle-range economy? Well, let's delve deeper into the story. But the economic landscape began to shift for Argentina in the mid-20th century. This was a period characterized by an unfortunate cocktail of corruption, inflation, and a strong dependence on foreign investors. These factors, among others, initiated a downward spiral that would see Argentina's economic fortunes dwindle significantly. Corruption became a pervasive issue, seeping into the very fabric of the nation's economic and political structures. It served as a hindrance to growth, with funds intended for public use being misappropriated for personal gain. The result was a lack of investment in crucial sectors and a widening gap between the rich and the poor. Inflation, too, played a significant role in Argentina's economic decline. As the value of the Argentine peso plummeted, the cost of living soared. Prices of goods and services became unstable, making it difficult for businesses to plan for the future and for consumers to maintain their standard of living. This uncertainty led to reduced spending and investment, further exacerbating the country's economic woes. Another critical factor in Argentina's economic downturn was its heavy reliance on foreign investors. This dependence left the nation vulnerable to fluctuations in global markets and the whims of foreign entities. When these investors pulled out, as they often did during periods of economic instability, Argentina was left grappling with a gaping hole in its economy. Moreover, the country's focus on the export of raw materials, a strategy that had once propelled it to economic prominence, became a double-edged sword. While this provided substantial revenue during periods of high global demand, it also left Argentina at the mercy of volatile commodity prices and shifts in international trade policies. In the face of these challenges, Argentina's economy began to falter. The once thriving nation saw its GDP dwindle, and its position on the world stage diminished. It was a stark contrast to the prosperous country it had once been, with its fertile lands, favorable climate, and strategic geographical location. The once prosperous nation found itself grappling with economic crises and a dwindling world market share. This marked the beginning of a long and complex economic decline, a decline that would continue to shape Argentina's destiny for decades to come. Argentina's economic downfall can largely be attributed to its long-term economic policies. The nation's trajectory from prosperity to stagnation is a telling tale of the impact of economic policy choices. A major factor in Argentina's economic decline was its unsuccessful attempts to curb rampant inflation. Inflation is like a wildfire. Once it gets out of control, it's exceedingly difficult to contain. Unfortunately for Argentina, its economic policies did little to douse the flames. The government's repeated devaluations of the peso, intended to boost exports, ended up igniting inflation instead. This made goods more expensive for Argentinians and eroded their purchasing power, leading to a decrease in domestic demand and slowing economic growth. Economic policies were also heavily influenced by corruption. Corruption is a corrosive force that eats away at economic growth. It creates inefficiencies and distorts the allocation of resources. In Argentina, corruption was rampant within both the private sector and the government. It undermined trust in the country's institutions and deterred foreign investment. This lack of transparency and accountability led to the misallocation of resources, further crippling the economy. Moreover, Argentina's reliance on foreign investors for economic stability proved to be a double-edged sword. While foreign investment can stimulate growth, it also brings vulnerabilities. When the global economy faltered, these investors pulled their funds, leaving Argentina's economy exposed. Argentina also failed to diversify its economy. The country heavily depended on the export of raw materials, particularly agricultural products. This left the economy vulnerable to fluctuations in global commodity prices. When prices fell, so did Argentina's fortunes. These economic policies, marked by corruption and mismanagement, led Argentina down a path of economic instability. The nation's story serves as a cautionary tale for other countries. It underscores the importance of sound economic policies and the perils of failing to adapt them in response to changing global economic conditions. The economic crises that Argentina faced were not isolated incidents, but a chronic problem. The nation was repeatedly rocked by economic turmoil, each one more severe than the last. Throughout the 20th century, Argentina's economy was a roller coaster. High inflation, currency devaluation, and a volatile exchange rate were constant issues. But the crisis that truly shook the nation to its core occurred in 2001. The new millennium brought with it a perfect storm of economic troubles. Argentina was already struggling with a recession when it was hit with a severe devaluation of the peso. This, coupled with high public debt and a shrinking economy, created a volatile environment. The government's response, to limit bank withdrawals, only added fuel to the fire. The public's trust in the economy and the government plummeted. This crisis culminated in what is now known as Argentina's default. In 2001, the government declared that it could not meet its debt obligations. This was the largest sovereign default in history, with the country defaulting on over $90 billion of debt. The impact was devastating. The default sent shockwaves through the Argentine economy. Unemployment soared, poverty rates spiked, and the nation's GDP plummeted. The effects were felt not just in the financial sector, but in every household. The Argentine middle class, once the backbone of the economy, was decimated. The default also had a profound impact on Argentina's standing in the global economy. The country, once a beacon of prosperity, was now a cautionary tale. Foreign investment dried up, and the nation found itself isolated from international financial markets. The 2001 default marked a historic low in Argentina's economic history, a far cry from its prosperous past. It is a stark reminder of how economic mismanagement, coupled with external pressures, can lead to disaster. But it also serves as a lesson, a warning to other nations on the importance of sound economic policy and fiscal responsibility. So, what can we learn from Argentina's economic history? Well, Argentina's story is one of a meteoric rise and a tragic fall. A century ago, this South American gem was among the world's top 10 economies. Its fertile lands, favorable climate, and strategic location poised it for greatness. Yet today it finds itself pushed into the third 10 countries by nominal GDP in the 21st century. Argentina's economic decline wasn't a sudden crash, but a slow deterioration. It's a tale of missed opportunities, corruption, inflation, and economic crises. It's about a country that relied heavily on foreign investors only to default on its debts. This is not to say that Argentina didn't have its moments of promise, but these were overshadowed by a series of unfortunate decisions and circumstances. The country's focus on raw material exports, for instance, left it vulnerable to the whims of the global market. So, what's the takeaway here? What lessons can other nations glean from Argentina's economic trajectory? Firstly, it's clear that a country's wealth isn't just about its natural resources, climate, or geographical location. It's about how these assets are managed and utilized. It's about having sound economic policies that promote growth and stability. Secondly, the dangers of corruption and mismanagement can't be overstated. These factors can undermine even the most promising of economies, leading to a downward spiral that's hard to break out of. Thirdly, dependence on foreign investors can be a double-edged sword. While it can provide a much-needed boost, it also comes with risks. If not managed carefully, it can lead to a devastating default, as Argentina's case clearly shows. Finally, it's about diversification. A heavy reliance on the export of raw materials can leave an economy exposed to fluctuations in global market prices. Diversification can help cushion against these shocks and ensure a more stable economic future. Argentina's economic history serves as a cautionary tale for nations worldwide, demonstrating the importance of sound economic policies and the perils of corruption and mismanagement.